Welcome to On the Edge with Deneen Dias. Today, my guest is my good friend, Jenny Glassmoyer from KB. Jenny, please introduce yourself.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. As Deneen said, my name is Jenny Glassmoyer. I'm a CPA and I work at Kerkering Barberio. We're one of the largest independent accounting firms on the Gulf Coast of Florida, and we've been serving our community for nearly 50 years. So we work with a lot of individual and business clients. We're a full service CPA firm. My background's in auditing until I found the outsourced accounting world. And so I shifted wholeheartedly into that. And I just look forward to kind of sharing my experiences. And if there's anything that I can share to help you, I'm all in.
Thank you, Jenny. Well, we were just chatting as we were getting started here, and I was like, Jenny, when did we first meet? I was at CPA.com, and you came to the AICPA offices in New York City for a workshop on building a CAS practice. I'm like, how long ago was that? And what did we say? How long has it been? Like
9 or no, you didn't have, so I age everything from the kids now.
I know.
10 years, it might be 10 years.
We think 10 years because my daughter's 8 and your daughter's 6. So isn't that crazy?
It is.
And I do consider you a friend, Jenny, because I feel like we've kind of learned together, you know, over the last, you were an early adopter. When you say you're all in, moved from audit over to building out this client accounting, you came to the workshop and you were like tenacious. You're like, yes, this is what I want to do. And you were relentless because it is a lot of work, and especially 10 years ago when, you know, no one else was really doing it. So we really learned together. So I've really cherished our friendship. I've learned so much, you know, with you. And I appreciate you joining me today to kind of share those trials and tribulations and successes. So I'd love for you to kind of share what your journey has been as you've transitioned, you know, out of auditing to what you've built for KB over the last 10 years.
Yeah, so I was in audit, loved it. I worked mainly with nonprofit clients, and with the whole Sarbanes-Oxley, it shifted kind of. I loved going in and, you know, coming up with a scope and a percentage and tracing and vouching and ticking and tying, and then everything kind of shifted to more of a theoretical way of testing with, you know, well, let's spend all of our time testing controls and the what ifs, which was interesting, but it replaced a lot of the stuff I ended up really enjoying. And then I found myself out in audits asking the clients what I need from them. And I just wanted to be like, here, scoot over, I'll just do that. And I thought, you know, that seems more fun to me than what I'm currently doing. And then an opportunity came up with one of our local governments that really, I went and worked there for almost a year. I had a desk there. I rarely went into our firm at all, and then turned into other projects where we brought in a team and I managed the team. And that kind of was my opening, because then I was out of the audits because I was so focused on that client and that project into the outsource. And then it would be, you know, someone from the firm saying, hey, I have a client that could use some help with this. And they became kind of, that was my first Intact implementation where we worked together, Deneen, in that relationship. And so it kind of just grew naturally from there. So I was still kind of my own little island, tucked away in the audit team, which was good and bad. Good because I kind of did my own schedule, did my thing, worked with my clients, started to really enjoy what I was doing. Bad because no one really in the firm knew what I was doing. I was, you know, trying to really like, I want this, I want that, and they would support, but it was baby steps. And I'm like gun ho. I you know, I see something I like and I'm like, all right, I want it yesterday. So how do I do it? So it's good too that you go through steps to make sure, all right, is this the right product? Is this the right decision? Right. So anyway, over the last, I guess, 10 years, we decided I switched to our healthcare team, which they do outsource accounting for, you know, radiology, doctor's offices in the for-profit healthcare, because they did more similar to what I did. But really it wasn't, and then I implemented some of their clients on Intact. But they're more focused on more compliance type things, where what I was doing for the nonprofits is more hand-holding throughout the month, helping them with all sorts of things, not just accounting. And then I then Trish, one of our shareholders, she stepped out of audit. She was an audit shareholder into the tax side and started doing outsourcing for high net worth clients. Well, now that got the firm's attention on how CAS, that industry, can be, very good for a firm and work year round. Although I think with the last few tax seasons, they probably consider that work year round now too, but it's not such a high and low. So
Right.
now we have a formal kind of outsourced department, and then I have my micro team where it was just me doing everything, and now I have 3 other people on my team that report to me and have shifted down the work and really stepped into I feel like a project manager type role, which is great. I enjoy it.
Well, and I've always said that the firm's so lucky to have you, because you've been sort of like this secret that's just snowballed into a very profitable, very successful part of the firm's practice. And it's just organically evolved, but they've had you and they have supported you because you've been fully, open to automation. You've been, pretty bullish about wanting technology. You needed technology because you're a team of yourself. And now you've grown a team, but you've been very bullish about, I want to automate, I want to use technology, because you're sort of that early adopter. To your point is, you're very open and willing to try the technology, figure out, make it work. And so I think they're lucky to have you. But I love that you've had success, and I love that it's transitioned to a couple of different verticals. And I think that's really been a secret to your success too, right? You started off in not-for-profit, you had a tax partner that was healthcare, now you have another tax partner that's high net worth. So do you agree that like going very deep into each of those 3 verticals has been a part of the success?
Well, absolutely. Our healthcare department, they've been doing it for many years. So they had it down packed. They made things, work for them. So they've been very established in our firm. But I think it's a little different type of outsource. I think a lot of things is where if you're just preparing, financials and tax planning and everything, it's more closely related to like a traditional CPA firm. But then when you do that real shift to the outsourcing, then you're getting into where you're the back office, you're the accounting. So I service a lot of faith-based organizations and schools. And so for our clients, we want them to be able to focus on their ministries and their missions and really understand how do you want to receive the information so it makes sense to you to make the strategic decisions you need to make. Because coming from, and that was a shift for me because I was like gap. Now I'm like,
the financial statement has to look like this, and it all has to look like this. And clients don't care so much about what the financial statement looks like. What they care about is what you just said, right? How does this make sense to me? Explain to me what my numbers mean. And I love that you said it's a big shift for you.
It was a shift. Because we'd put in all of our time in these financials and we're proud of it. And if they're not asking questions and they don't know how to read the financials, and especially for the not-for-profit industry, because that's a different set. You could have very, very successful board members on a board that know for-profit financials, but not-for-profits read very differently. So there's a lot of that educating, but also get out of like piles of numbers. And it really shifted from that being the end deliverable to now the financials are our starting point on when we really become valuable to the client. So that's probably the largest shift. Before, our end goal was give them the financials. Well, now I want the financials done very quickly, because now that's when we go in and we start to review the financials, look for, analyze them, see how we can help them, and have meetings. And it's now meetings upon meetings upon meetings, but that's when you can share the information and really find out what our clients are, going through or challenging, or what's coming up next that we might not know of if we just prepare our financials, send it to them and wait till the end of the next month.
It is a very different relationship. I think it would be more rewarding. Are you finding that it's more it's different how you're working with these, because I think, feedback that I've been hearing from firms is everyone's talking about move to advisory, make the shift to advisory. Everyone's talking about that. I think there's still some fear though of not knowing all the answers, right? When you're reporting and you're doing the reporting and you're just sending the reporting, you're really good at that, right? You're comfortable with that. But this is a shift outside of a comfort zone where you might not know all the answers. So can you talk about that? Because while I think it would be more rewarding, I do see that there's sort of like a trepidatiousness to making that shift.
Yeah, so and that's well said, and it's very true. It was a shift from that preparation of the financials. You can always tick and tie financials and like, okay, this is right. You proofed it, you footed it, you're good. But then as you shift into the advisory, it kind of just happens naturally. If I would say, okay, now I'm going to be an advisor, go. Where do you begin? Like there aren't classes or something that you can go out to be an advisor, because really to advise you have to it's really learning how to listen and hold the hands of the clients. I honestly, as I become more of an advisor, I almost feel like I'm becoming less of an accountant, and I really rely on my team because now they're in the details. And it was all the stuff I used to do 5-6 years ago, and then I'm like, I need to call them and see, what are you doing? But our clients don't want every single person to be able to do every single job. That's why we have the different roles. So as I moved up to more of a higher level, I now have the ability and the time to listen to them, have weekly meetings with them, and hear what's going on, and then really how I can serve them or assist is just being available anytime with a phone call, text, anyway, and whatever needs they have. So it will shift all the time. So like the financials and the closing process.
It's stickier. Of course, if they're calling you, you've trained them. Don't do anything without calling me, right? Or if you have any questions, call me. Like that's what I'm here for. That's my role, is to help you as you're making these big business decisions. Yeah. Well, that's exciting.
So I'm more like an on-call accountant now, I think.
You what?
On-call. Now I'm more of an on-call accountant now.
On-call accountant. I love it.
But it's never usually how you think it's going to be.
I love how you said, though, that you've kind of moved up, right? And you have your team now that can be in more of the details. But, I'd like for you to talk about the technology too, because that's also, you've been really good at implementing the technology that's needed to allow you to free up your time to move into the more analytical and advisory. And it sounds like, you've built your team around that technology too. So can you share a little bit about that transition, the technology, automation?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's one of the things I'm still working on. I'm still learning. I'm constantly learning. I'm not a pro at any of this. I just start by doing, and that was hard because I always want it to be like perfect, and then I'm ready to put out a perfect product. And as I look back, the times where I just jumped in and said we can do it, and I'm like, oh, we did it, and we learned from it, and we're that much better. So from the technology standpoint, that has a lot to do with it. And so we have, tech stack is verbiage that you hear a lot about. So we have our technologies. I've spent, KB has been great in supporting my time to spend researching a lot of different programs out there. And the more you go to learn, then the more you find out there are. And at one point, you just have to pick one that meets your current needs and really go with it. Because then I found out I was just like, I could spend my whole time just implementing new things. And so I now have, okay, these are the programs that I use. So the different softwares and stuff that are part of our everyday that make us successful, obviously Botkeeper is one. And Botkeeper had the biggest role in where I said our work really begins with the financials and don't end with the financials. So the clients that we've recently brought on a Botkeeper, now our staff steps in once those basic financials are done and prepared by the Botkeeper team. So that really does keep us focused on those value-added roles, because if we're doing the reconciliations and we're doing the basic financial statement prep and more of the data input, then it eats up our time.
Yeah.
And it takes away time, and then we're always crunching it till those financials are due, and then we don't have time to do the analytics and look at the trends, report on KPIs. So Botkeeper has been great in servicing our clients that we've brought on and getting us to that starting point, and it has kind of helped force us into that advisory role and not that doer role. The other systems we use are QuickBooks Online, Sage Intacct. Those are the only two that I work with. Our firm obviously works with more, but the industries that I work in, those are the two. Martis Tools is a great, we use that for budgeting and forecasting. Bill.com. Bill.com was one of the, other than QuickBooks, Bill.com was the first software that we used to automate that AP process, and then also utilizing Vic AI in partnership with Botkeeper and Bill.com. And I know I'm missing and then Flowcast. We use Flowcast as well for our month-end reconciliations and our closing procedures.
Good.
And
it's a perfect tech stack. You know, you've shifted to the cloud. You're automating with the tools that integrate together. You're able to help with Bill Pay, with Bill.com. It's a great tech stack, and I don't think it needs to be so overwhelming. I mean, obviously you've evolved with each, you don't do all of them all at once, right? You move to the cloud first with the QBO and the Intacct, and then you add the pieces. And I think Botkeeper is the newer piece, because we're just within this year, right? We're fully firm focused.
Yep.
So I know when I came here, you're like, oh, Deneen, I want AI, tell me more. And I love that you jumped right in. But tell me more how that transition has been like, and how has your team embraced, their process changed with Botkeeper. So can you share some of what that transition, did they resist it, or did they embrace it too?
Well, I really feel like everything just kind of lined up, because this year at our firm, all of our managers, shareholders, and some supervisors were given goals that really were kind of above it, outside of our comfort zone a little bit, but things that would help our firm. Our whole firm is going to this one firm initiative, which I think many firms are working towards. I'm super excited about that. And in that, one of my goals, or basically my main one, is to investigate AI, machine learning, and see how we could bring it into our outsourcing, because we really just hit the ground running. Especially the Trish and our whole team, they're growing so fast that we weren't able to get organized, before growing. And so sometimes that happens. So in researching that, I was thinking Botkeeper built bots. And so I came originally, to the first demo, expecting to be like, hey, here are my payroll is very time consuming and a waste of time. And it's taking us, 2 hours sometimes to post a payroll, especially if you have all the multiple dimensions. And then with nonprofits, you have many dimensions that you've got to break everyone out to. And the payroll system doesn't have all those dimensions. Many of them don't. And so if they're using one of those systems that don't, it's a very painful process. So I was going to be tasked with finding a bot to do that for us. So I'm like, Botkeeper. So I was like, hey, Deneen, I think it's time for us to talk. And, but then I found out, while they might build bots, you guys use them, but you don't just build something for us to continue doing the work. You actually just do the work for us. I'm like, oh, this is even better. So the fact that it was my goal, part of my goals for the firm, the firm's behind it and excited about it. And so it's been received well. We brought on just a sample of clients, but we made sure it wasn't just my clients. So we had 3 of the leaders have a client involved, so we can get feedback on all of it. And so it's been well received. Now we found that some One of it didn't fit because the client has to do most of the stuff. It wasn't like Botkeeper wasn't taking anything from us. So then we're like, okay, so now we know Botkeeper is really valuable for us for if it's a client that's on, well, for me, it's QuickBooks Online right now. And if we're doing any reconciliations, any data entry, bill pay, and then preparation of just kind of the QuickBooks reports. Now, once those are done, our team comes in and we'll convert it to, if it's a charter school, the school district reports, or we'll convert it to the more nonprofit reports with the different funds that QuickBooks doesn't do. But it gets us to that starting point where then my team is now doing more accounting and advisory.
Good.
And it really lets people grow quickly within the firm too, because they're not just doing, you know, bill pay and data entry for 2 years. They're going right in with analyzing financial statements. So it's great for everyone.
Good. I'm glad to hear you say, I mean, you touched on a couple of things, but I am glad to hear you say that it's helping with growth of your team members, because I do think that, listen, there are some firms that do have some talent that really like gathering the data, right, and reporting on the data. Like that's where they're comfortable. And so that might be hard for them. But I really feel like right now with the Great Resignation happening, and I've been reading that 70% of the talent that are leaving firms are not going to another firm. They're leaving. So your talent is stressed out, they're burned out, and they need a lift, right? They need something to be able to get home on time, right? They're drowning.
Yeah.
And so I'm glad to hear you say not only, you know, are they open to automating some of those tasks, but you're also seeing them being able to evolve in their career and being able to do more of the fun stuff. I call it the fun stuff, right? Where you're analyzing, advising, and consulting, and that they're enjoying those roles. So that's really, I'm really glad to hear you say that. And you also did mention that obviously in order for Botkeeper to work with the firm's clients, they need to be in the cloud. So they have to be on QBO and Xero. What you referenced is you do have a lot of your not-for-profits on Intact, and we do not integrate yet with Intact, but we will be in 2022. We've committed to that.
Very excited about that.
That's really good. Have you, what about pricing for your clients? Because, you know, one of the firms I talked to, I've been traveling a little bit, and one firm said, if I use Botkeeper, I'm going to have to fire all my staff. And I was like, no. Like, we're not replacing your talent at all. No. We're empowering them and making them superhumans, if you will. But have you had to shift any pricing? Because honestly, we're very affordable. And so if you're charging by the hour and then it costs less because you're automating more, I mean, but I think you value bill. Or so can you kind of talk a little bit about pricing and how that's working for you?
Yeah, so pricing is very interesting. A comment on I have to get rid of my staff or it's going to replace certain people. Honestly, by bringing Botkeeper in, we actually started, now we have the time to do everything we list in our engagement letters, because many times we get the financials out and we stop. Mm-hmm. But if you go back and look at your engagement letters and you're reviewing it for the next year, you're like, oh, benchmarking, oh, trends, there's all, you know what I mean? So it allows you to do really more for your client. Now, if it's in your current engagement letters, great. But if it's not in your current engagement letters, then the pricing, it's now you have time and you can start to offer that to your clients and adjust your pricing accordingly. So I don't, unless it's a project, a one-time project where I'm like, here's the choice. I can try to estimate some hours and you know, not to exceed pricing, or this is my hourly rate and you use me as much as you want to use me and I bill you for what I do. But most of our clients that we're doing outsourced work for, it's a fixed fee. Now, obviously it's based off of, you know, the staff involved and the time and what we're doing, but the Botkeeper just comes in as part of that fixed cost for that client. And then we build upon that. So it really sets our team up to do the things that we never had time to do before.
That's great. That's what one of the firms mentioned to me, that they forget who's on Botkeeper and who's not on Botkeeper. And they just assume that everybody's books are closed by the 15th. And then when they get in there, they're like, oh no, these books aren't closed on time. We forgot.
Oh my gosh,
so,
I can see that happening. That's funny because it's not me, but I can see that happening. Like, oh, why aren't these reconciled? And start to type an email to, oh wait, that's on us.
Yeah, because a lot of the firms, to your point, they're drowning, and they're not even able to get the financials done by the 15th, right? The books aren't even closed on time because there's a lot. I know it's a really tough time. There's been a lot of transition with people leaving the firm, and a lot of firms are turning away the business. And can you imagine if you're able to say yes to all the business that, like, a lot of firms are getting a lot of phone calls saying, can you help me? Can you help me with my bookkeeping? Can you help me with my bill kit? Can you help me with my payroll? And imagine if you could say yes to even small businesses because you're automating more, right?
That's the key, because before, with my pricing and the setup and intact and all, everything that needs to go in, there's some smaller churches that will say, hey, will you help me? And I'm like, here, I have some names of some bookkeepers that I know that are good and do some churches because the price that we would charge typically, but having Botkeeper now, if all they want are some of those, a lot of them start off small, and I know that they're going to grow, and they could grow in a multi-campus. So I don't want to lose that relationship because I have to price so much. So now having Botkeeper, I used to be afraid of those, like, hey, can you help me out? We're small, and now I'm almost welcoming it because I can help them out at an affordable price. That's good for the firm, good for them, and really allows them to get in the door so we can grow with them and grow the services. So Botkeeper definitely made a difference for me in that aspect.
Thank you.
We actually have a question I'd like to bring forward. Jenny, can you share some of the ways you've engaged with the rest of the firm to elevate the accounting team to a priority in their client engagements they're having in tax, audit, etc., to increase referrals from other departments?
Wow, that's a loaded question. That's a good question. Well, with our firm moving towards a one firm initiative, they're very open to hearing from different departments and what they're doing. And that's exactly what we're striving towards, is not to be, oh, it's an audit client, so we're only going to have the auditors meet with them. Oh, it's an outsourced client, I'm only going to have me meet with them. So now I'm identifying some of our A clients to say, hey, bring some other departments. We have a pension company. We have, international company. We've got a lot of different departments and a lot of specialists that can come in. And many times people are like, oh, we need an audit, because they use the word audit very loosely. And so I'll be like, okay, great. And I might bring a manager or shareholder from the audit team, but I'm going to meet with them too, and maybe bring in some others. And then you find out what they're asking isn't what they needed at all. And you can really customize the package and then kind of cross-sell between the firm. We're trying to move away from, Jenny's client, and really have it be a firm client, and we're taking active steps to make that happen. And so I think it will naturally come out. So we had a shareholder retreat where some of the people talked about their goals and what they're working on. We have firm town hall meetings, mostly on Zoom lately, or a combination of Zoom and in person. And our managing shareholder will put out like a YouTube video of just updates on what the firm's working towards. So, and we're working on also where to store all the information, so we can share the information and knowledge. And really, it starts with inviting other department heads into each other's client meetings, because sometimes that's when you find a need, and it will that inter-office, like marketing, will naturally happen. Lunch and learns is something else that I have on my calendar to do, to show, hey, we have these resources. One of them is to talk about AI, like what is that and how can it help us? I know how it can help outsourcing. I don't know how it will help tax yet, but if I can let them know, those questions will start, and then I can connect them to people.
So I'm watching the time. We are at time, Jenny. Thanks so much. And I think that was a great question and a great answer, right? It flew by. Because here's the thing, to the person asking that question, what I'm hearing Jenny say is it kind of starts from the top. So leadership has to, like, becoming a firm of one is no small task. And it is very hard for a lot of the traditional partners that have always had their book of business, to move to that firm of one. So it really kind of has to stem from the top, and you have to have the leadership make that commitment, right? To that be like a firm-wide decision. But I love the firm strategy is, hey, let's all sit down and meet with this client. They might say they need bookkeeping, but maybe they don't. They might say they need audit, maybe they don't. They might say they need tax, they don't know what they need. Let's meet with them,
Right.
let's talk to them, and then we can, as a team, determine how we can best partner with this client. So thank you so much, Jenny. I appreciate it. If anybody wants to reach out to you, do you mind sharing your email address?
No, absolutely. I love to share anything that I've learned, because I think we can all make each other stronger. I might have questions right back at you. So my email is jglassmoyer, JGlassmoyer at K, B as in boy, GRP as in Paul.com. So it's KB Group, but no vowels. jglassmoyer at KBGRP.com. I'm also on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook. So
Thanks, Jenny. Thanks so much. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
thank you.